Not every treasure in Storage Wars was hidden inside a dusty storage locker. Sometimes the real gems were the people themselves. The bold personalities, the laughter, the rivalries, and the risks they took to make every episode feel like a story you couldn't turn away from. They weren't just buyers and bidders. They were characters in a drama that unfolded in real time, each of them leaving their mark on fans' hearts. But if you've noticed that some familiar faces have quietly disappeared from the screen, it's not always because they stopped bidding. Sometimes life itself steps in, taking them away when no one is watching. And the silence they leave behind still lingers, as if they had just been here yesterday. Today we're revisiting the lives of 10 beloved Storage Wars members who tragically passed away. Their stories, their struggles, and the legacies they left behind. Number 10. Dave Hester. What if a TV show wasn't just about the excitement, the drama, and the thrill of the auctions? What if something darker seemed to be hovering in the background? Over the years, fans have whispered about an invisible curse surrounding Storage Wars. Too many cast members, they say, have faced illness, near-death experiences, or heartbreaking misfortune. Among them is Dave Hester, the man whose booming "Yup" became the battle cry of the show. He wasn't just another bidder, he was a force of nature. Dave knew how to win, how to play hard, and how to make sure all eyes stayed on him. But behind that confident, larger-than-life presence, a storm was brewing. In 2012, Dave shocked viewers by publicly claiming the show was staged, that storage lockers were deliberately salted with valuable items to make episodes more exciting. He didn't stop at accusations. He filed a lawsuit, dragging the network into court. The move cost him dearly. The producers removed him from the show, seemingly for good. Yet, after some time, Dave returned. Maybe the network realized he was too important to lose. Maybe they thought the controversy had faded. But not long after stepping back into the spotlight, Dave faced something far more devastating than legal trouble. He suffered a hemorrhagic stroke, bleeding inside his brain, caused by high blood pressure and sleep apnea, conditions that many ignore until it's too late. One moment, he was a fierce competitor on television. The next, he was lying in a hospital bed, unable to speak or move. Doctors were unsure if he would survive. Against the odds, Dave pulled through. Fans were relieved to see him recover, but his ordeal left an uneasy question hanging in the air. Why do such tragedies keep striking members of Storage Wars? Is it all just coincidence? Or is there truly something ominous behind the scenes? Number 9. Mark Balelo. To Storage Wars fans, Mark Balelo was more than just another face at the auctions. He was a character straight out of a movie. Nicknamed Rico Suave for his sharp sense of style and confident swagger, he showed up at storage auctions dressed to impress, pockets full of cash, ready to outbid anyone if he sensed something valuable might be hidden inside. On screen, he radiated charm, energy, and a hunger for the next big score. But behind the polished exterior, Mark's life was far more fragile than anyone knew. On an early Monday morning, the world learned the heartbreaking news. Mark was found inside his car, parked in the garage of his auction business, Balelo Inc. in Simi Valley, California. The cause was confirmed as carbon monoxide poisoning, the result of inhaling exhaust fumes. He was only 40 years old. Everything pointed to the devastating truth. Mark had taken his own life. Just 2 days earlier, Mark's world had already been shaken. He had been arrested at his business for possession of methamphetamines and for being under the influence. A court date was set for February 19th. Even though he avoided serious jail time, the weight of legal trouble seemed to press heavily on him. His fiancée, Elizabeth Metzidas, later revealed that Mark had asked her to keep him company at his office during that time because he was feeling emotionally unstable. She stayed with him for a while, thinking he was improving. But the very next day he was gone. Mark's life story had always been one of reinvention. Born in Portugal, he spent his early childhood in Brazil before moving to the United States at the age of 14. He built his life from scratch, first running a video game store called Game Exchange. In 2011, he opened his own auction house, stepping fully into the world of buying and selling abandoned treasures. That same year, Mark found himself at the center of a headline-making discovery, one that earned him praise far beyond the auction community. While sorting through the contents of a purchased storage locker, he uncovered a rare and historic comic book, Action Comics #1, the 1938 issue that introduced Superman to the world. The comic had been stolen from actor Nicolas Cage more than a decade earlier. Mark could have kept quiet, but instead he ensured it was returned to its rightful owner. It was valued at nearly $1 million, but the gesture spoke louder than any price tag. For fans, that act became part of Mark's legacy, proof that beneath the swagger was a man with a sense of honor. And yet, his passing became a painful reminder that we never truly know the battles someone is fighting on the inside, no matter how confident or put together they seem in public. When police arrived that morning, they found him already gone. A man who once brought flair, drama, and unforgettable energy to storage wars had been silenced forever, and the world of storage auctions would never be quite the same. Number 8. Gunter Nezhoda. The Storage Wars family lost a soul whose presence brought warmth, humor, and genuine kindness to the screen. Gunter Nezhoda, known to fans for his easy laugh and affable personality, was more than just a cast member. He was the kind of person who made you feel at ease, even through a television screen. Gunter's journey on the show began in its later years, joining during the 4th season and later becoming a recurring favorite in Season 8 alongside his son, Renee, and daughter-in-law, Casey, the well-known bargain hunters from Poway, California. But it wasn't long before audiences realized that Gunter's charm stood on its own. He wasn't just part of a family team. He was a personality people wanted to see more of. Sadly, his time in the spotlight was cut short. At the age of 67, Gunter passed away after a courageous battle with lung cancer. His son Renee broke the heartbreaking news in an emotional video posted to social media. Renee spoke openly about the journey, revealing that his father had been diagnosed only 6 months earlier. For 3 decades, Gunter had been a smoker, and although he eventually quit, the damage had already taken root. His lungs had developed holes, leaving his body unable to recover from the disease's relentless progression. In his final days, Gunter was in a hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah. His youngest son, Ricky, was by his side when he slipped away peacefully in his sleep. Renee explained that they had chosen to keep his illness private, truly believing that he might pull through. They didn't expect the fight to end so soon. Gunter's life was as colorful as his on-screen appearances. Born in Austria, he moved to Las Vegas in 1990 and built a life filled with creativity and adventure. He was a passionate photographer, a skilled bass player, and a man whose talents extended far beyond the auction floor. Over the years, he played with rock legends like Michael Schenker, Leslie West, and Pat Travers. He even appeared in a few films, including Do Not Disturb and The Haunting of Death Valley Junction. Fans loved him because he was genuine. In a world of big personalities and intense rivalries, Gunter never drew hate, only affection. He was the kind of cast member who brought a quiet balance to the show, a reminder that Storage Wars wasn't just about the treasures in the lockers, but also about the human connections made along the way. In the end, his passing left a void, not just in his family's life, but in the hearts of countless viewers who felt like they knew him. And while his time on the series may have been shorter than others, the way he touched people's hearts ensures that his memory will last far beyond his final episode. Number 7. Mo Prigge. For viewers of Storage Wars, Texas, Mo Prigge was unforgettable. A man whose sense of style was as bold as his personality, whose quick wit and playful humor could light up even the dustiest of auction lots. He wore outfits that turned heads, bid with fearless enthusiasm, and had a knack for finding the unusual in a sea of forgotten items. But what most people didn't know was that behind the colorful wardrobe and easy smile, Mo led a life as remarkable as any treasure found on the show. Mo wasn't just a TV personality, he was a doctor. For more than 30 years, he worked as a podiatrist, caring for his patients with the same dedication he showed to his business ventures. He was also a lifelong collector, spending decades hunting for rare furniture, unique art, and objects with stories to tell. Eventually, he turned that passion into a business, opening River Regency Modern, a Dallas store specializing in mid-century modern designs. With the help of his young store manager, Robert, Mo managed to run the store while also balancing his medical career. A juggling act that would exhaust most people but seemed second nature to him. On Storage Wars Texas, Mo often partnered with fellow bidder Mary Padian, and together, they were a dynamic duo. Mary eventually moved to California to join the main Storage Wars cast, but Mo stayed close to home, focusing on his patients and his shop. His colleagues nicknamed him the Doc. And on the show, he appeared in all 3 seasons, leaving an impression not just for his humor, but for his refined eye and deep knowledge of the collectibles market. Outside of work, Mo's life was full of art, music, and adventure. He loved gardening, teaching, swimming, basketball, and traveling. Wherever he went, he found beauty and meaning in the world around him. Above all, he adored his wife, Michaela, the love of his life for 19 years. He often referred to her affectionately as my wife for life, a phrase that spoke volumes about the bond they shared. But life took a difficult turn. Mo battled a serious illness for 6 years, enduring the struggle with quiet resilience. Michaela stood by his side through it all, caring for him and giving him strength. On March 4th, 2021, that fight came to an end. Mo passed away, leaving behind not just a grieving family, but a legion of fans who remembered him as a man who could bring life to even the most ordinary auction. Mo's story is a reminder that Storage Wars was never just about dusty boxes and hidden valuables. Sometimes the real treasures were the people, like Mo, who brought heart, humor, and humanity to the hunt. Number 6. Brandon Sheets. For years, Brandon Sheets stood shoulder to shoulder with his father, Daryl the Gambler Sheets, as one of the most recognizable father and son duos on Storage Wars. Together, they brought a mix of confidence, banter, and competitive spirit to every auction. Fans loved watching their dynamic. Daryl's bold risk-taking paired with Brandon's steady, sharp-eyed approach. But the road that began in the spotlight eventually took a turn into hardship, danger, and a near brush with tragedy. In 2017, everything changed. Brandon was suddenly let go from Storage Wars. The producers claimed it was due to budget cuts, but fans couldn't help but notice that Daryl stayed on, while Brandon was left to find his next chapter. Determined not to fade away, Brandon tried his hand at real estate and later took a job as a truck driver for UPS, a far cry from the competitive auction floors he was used to. Then, in early 2022, came the night that nearly ended his life. Brandon was asleep in the back of a UPS semi-truck on a long-haul route. His regular driving partner had the day off, and a substitute driver was behind the wheel. Somewhere along the highway, at nearly 70 miles per hour, the truck collided with another vehicle. The impact was devastating. Brandon described waking up to the sound and force of what felt like an explosion. Chaos surrounded him. Twisted metal, shattered glass, and the deafening aftermath of the crash. Rushed to a hospital in Texas and later transported back home to Arizona, he miraculously escaped with only minor physical injuries. But the emotional scars ran deep. In a heartfelt social media post, Brandon revealed his frustration and disappointment with how UPS handled the incident. He said the company refused to provide workers' compensation or replace the personal items he lost in the crash. More than that, he felt the accident could have been avoided entirely with better safety training, especially for team drivers who spend long hours on the road. Strangely, Brandon's ordeal echoed another frightening chapter in his family's history. In 2019, Daryl Sheets himself suffered a severe health crisis. After months of feeling unwell, Daryl was hospitalized, where doctors discovered he had congestive heart failure and a serious lung condition. He even endured a mild heart attack. For a time, the situation was critical, so much so that Daryl had to wear a defibrillator vest after surgery. Though Daryl's heart function improved to about 40% within a month, both father and son were reminded of just how fragile life could be. And for fans, these back-to-back scares raised an unsettling question. Why did so many Storage Wars cast members seem to face life-threatening moments once the cameras stopped rolling? Brandon's near-death experience may not have ended in tragedy, but it added another haunting chapter to the show's off-screen history, one filled with close calls, medical emergencies, and lives forever changed. Number 5. Dan Dodson. Long before Storage Wars became a household name, Dan Dodson had already carved out his place in the world of auctions. He wasn't just a man with a gavel. He was a showman, a deal maker, and a born entertainer. Together with his wife, Laura, he ran American Auctioneers, the company that eventually became the heart and soul of the show's bidding wars. Their fast-talking banter and infectious energy turned every auction into an event, and fans quickly came to see Dan and Laura as one of the show's most unshakable power couples. But in 2014, a single, ordinary day nearly became his last. It began with something small, a headache. At first, it seemed like nothing more than fatigue from another long day on the auction circuit. But then Laura noticed something alarming. Dan's words began to tangle, coming out in a jumbled, almost nonsensical way. His eyes rolled back, his legs buckled under him, and within seconds, the healthy color in his face shifted to a chilling bluish green. Laura acted instantly. She called for help, staying by his side as his condition spiraled. What was happening wasn't a fainting spell or a simple dizzy spell. It was 2 brain aneurysms striking at the same time. Most people never survive even one. Somehow Dan made it. Doctors later explained that his survival was partly due to a small, unlikely advantage. There wasn't excessive bleeding inside his brain when the aneurysms ruptured, which gave surgeons a fighting chance to save him. His neurologist, Dr. M. Asataki, called his recovery rare, but possible. Dan remained in the hospital for a time, with Laura never leaving his side. And while he lay in that bed, confronted with how close he had come to losing everything, something inside him shifted. Turning to Laura, he announced with quiet conviction, "Guess what? I'm a non-smoker now." It was more than a vow. It was a declaration of life reclaimed. For Dan, surviving wasn't just luck. It was a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. But as the years went on, the Dodsons would learn that life still had more trials waiting for them, ones that would strike even closer to the heart of their family. Number 4. Dan and Laura Dodson's son, Garrett. After Dan Dodson's miraculous recovery from 2 life-threatening brain aneurysms, you might think fate would give the Dodson family a break. They had already faced enough fear and uncertainty to last a lifetime. But in 2022, tragedy came dangerously close to their door again, this time targeting their only son, Garrett. It was the kind of nightmare no parent ever wants to live through. Garrett, just 22 years old, had traveled to Arizona to visit his girlfriend. The trip was meant to be a simple getaway, nothing more than time spent with someone he cared about. But in an instant, that sense of normalcy shattered. Garrett was shot, The damage was catastrophic. And yet, against all odds, he managed to do something incredible. He dialed 911 himself, even as he was bleeding and struggling to hold on. Laura would later describe it as nothing short of a miracle that he was still conscious, let alone able to call for help. But the situation was far too severe for the local hospital to handle. The bullet had torn through the vena cava, one of the largest and most vital veins in the human body, causing him to bleed internally. His condition was so critical that during the emergency transfer to Las Vegas, a doctor climbed onto the operating table mid-flight, physically holding Garrett's torn vein together with his hands while massaging his heart to keep it beating. Every second was a race against death. Once they landed, Garrett was rushed straight into surgery. Against the slimmest of odds, the medical team managed to repair the damage and save his life. Dan later said he would forever be grateful to the paramedics, doctors, and strangers who came together that day to make the impossible happen. The man accused of shooting Garrett, 24-year-old Garrett Wilder, was arrested and charged with multiple crimes, including 2 counts of aggravated assault and disorderly conduct with a weapon. But for the Dodsons, the legal process was secondary. What mattered most was that their son was alive, though the emotional toll of nearly losing him would stay with them forever. It was another cruel reminder of how quickly life can change, and how even after surviving one near-death experience, the next tragedy can come without warning. Number 3, Brandi Passante. From the very first season of Storage Wars, Brandi Passante became one of the most recognizable faces in the series. Alongside her then-partner, Jarrod Schulz, she brought a mix of sharp business instincts and quick humor that made the duo fan favorites. Their chemistry was undeniable, so much so that A&E gave them their own spin-off in 2014, Brandi and Jarrod, Married to the Job. On the surface, it looked like a dream. But behind the scenes, the fame that came with the show carried a darker cost. In 2020, Brandi opened up about something she had kept private for years. Sitting down for an interview on The Dad Diary with Danny Jordan, she revealed that as her public profile grew, so did unwanted attention. It started with fan mail, but quickly became something far more disturbing. She began receiving letters that were not only inappropriate, but also frightening. Some were so threatening that they made her fear for her safety and the safety of her children. The situation escalated to the point where Brandi felt she had no choice but to move into a gated community with 24-hour security. Even then, the emotional toll was heavy. She admitted that the fear began to take over her life, making her afraid to go outside, to be recognized, to live normally. The anxiety and constant worry pushed her to seek therapy, a step that helped her slowly regain a sense of peace. With time, Brandi found her footing again. She began to reclaim her independence and rediscover her confidence. But her story was a stark reminder that fame doesn't just bring opportunity, it can also bring danger. The smiling faces we see on TV are often carrying burdens we can't see, and Brandi's challenges were only part of a larger troubling pattern among Storage Wars cast members, a string of close calls, personal crises, and tragedies that seemed to follow the show long after the cameras stopped rolling. Number 2, Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss was unlike anyone else on Storage Wars. While most bidders were focused on turning a profit, Barry seemed to be on a different mission entirely. He was there for the thrill of discovery. Nicknamed the Collector, he was the eccentric uncle of the auction world, the guy who would roll up in a wild, one-of-a-kind car, wearing skeleton gloves and chopper-style sunglasses, just to see what hidden oddities might be tucked away in a locker. Barry didn't play by the same rules as the others. He didn't need the money. He was already financially secure. What he craved was the story behind each item, the mystery, the sheer fun of the hunt. Sometimes he even brought along psychics, letting them guess what treasures might be inside a unit before he opened it. Viewers loved him for it. He was unpredictable, entertaining, and completely original, So when Barry suddenly disappeared from the show, fans were left disappointed and puzzled. There was no big announcement, no farewell episode. He was simply gone. But in April 2019, the reason for his absence became heartbreakingly clear. Barry was involved in a horrific motorcycle accident in Los Feliz, Los Angeles. He and a friend were riding when they collided head-on with a car. The impact was brutal. Both men were rushed to the hospital, but Barry's injuries were far more severe. Details were scarce at first, and rumors began to swirl online. Some even falsely claimed he had died. The truth was that Barry survived, but his recovery was long and painful. For a man known for his vibrant energy and adventurous spirit, being sidelined by injury was a devastating blow. Yet true to form, Barry faced it with resilience and wit. In the years that followed, he kept a lower public profile, making only occasional appearances at events and auctions. For fans, the accident was a jarring reminder that even the most untouchable personalities can face moments of vulnerability. Barry's larger-than-life persona had made him seem invincible, but life has a way of reminding us, sometimes brutally, that no one is immune to sudden change. And while the yups and high-stakes bids continued without him, there was an undeniable void in Storage Wars. Without Barry's offbeat humor and unpredictable antics, the auctions just weren't quite the same. Number 1. Jarrod Schulz and Brandi Passante. When Storage Wars first hit television screens, Jarrod Schulz and Brandi Passante quickly became the couple everyone followed. They had the kind of chemistry producers dream about. Playful banter, competitive energy, and a shared determination to outbid the competition and score big. They worked side by side, laughed together, and seemed to have figured out a perfect balance between business and family life. They even landed their own spin-off in 2014, Brandi and Jarrod, Married to the Job. But in reality, they were never married. Still, their partnership, both personal and professional, lasted for years. Together, they raised children, built a life around auctions, and became a central part of the Storage Wars story. Over time, though, things began to change. By the start of Season 13 in 2021, they openly confirmed what many fans had already suspected. Their relationship was over. Yet they continued to work on the show together, appearing side by side at auctions, despite no longer being a couple. At first, it seemed like the split was amicable. There were no public outbursts, no tabloid-fueled fights. They appeared to be keeping things professional, for the sake of the show and their shared history. But in May 2021, headlines told a different story. TMZ reported that Jarrod was facing charges for domestic violence against Brandi. The incident allegedly took place at a bar in Orange County, where Brandi was out with friends. When Jarrod arrived, tensions rose. According to reports, Brandi asked him multiple times to leave, but he refused. The situation escalated and turned physical. Jarrod stayed silent in the media, neither confirming nor denying the accusations. The lack of response only fueled speculation, leaving fans unsure of what to believe. Then Brandi made a quiet but powerful statement on Instagram. She posted a photo of a tattoo on her forearm. The word free. In the caption, she didn't name anyone directly, but her words spoke volumes. She explained that the tattoo symbolized surviving something that could have broken her, something that many people never escape from. She expressed gratitude for the peace and safety she now felt, and for the strength to move forward. It was a sobering moment for fans who had once seen them as one of reality TV's most dynamic couples. The story of Brandi and Jarrod, once filled with laughter and ambition, had ended in tension and pain. A reminder that what we see on screen is often only a fraction of the truth. And with that, the list of Storage Wars tragedies and near tragedies came to a close. But for those who watch the rise and fall of these personalities, one question lingers. Are these just unfortunate coincidences? Or is there something about the world behind the storage locker doors that invites misfortune?